Caitlin Clark's exclusion from the Team USA roster has ignited a controversy of unprecedented proportions, a decision so flawed that it threatens to undermine the very foundation of what was once considered an untouchable legacy in women's basketball. The Olympics have begun, and what should have been a showcase of American dominance has instead turned into a glaring indictment of poor judgment and missed opportunities.
So, you offered the contract to a player who's not yet even in the WNBA. Big Three does not happen during overseas season, so that doesn't make sense.
That's true.
And then you pretty much offended all of the European countries that open their doors to us, give us a lot of money, a lot of love, and a lot of experience by calling them dismal and dubious. And there's some very beautiful countries that we have the opportunity to go play in. So, I mean, if you're gonna say that it's for that, then stand on that, but I don't think.
The numbers don't lie. For the first time in Olympic history, Team USA women's basketball is facing a shocking reality: minuscule attendance numbers that are nothing short of a national embarrassment. This is a team that has always been synonymous with gold, a team that has carried the banner of American excellence on the global stage. And yet, in this critical moment, the seats are empty, the crowds are quiet, and the world is watching in stunned silence. It is not a stretch to say that this disaster could have been avoided. Caitlin Clark, a name that has become synonymous with electrifying talent and unprecedented star power, was left off the roster in what can only be described as one of the most baffling decisions in recent sports history. From high school gyms to NCAA stadiums, to her rookie year in the WNBA, Clark has sold out arenas, captivated audiences, and redefined what it means to be a basketball phenom. And now, as Team USA struggles to fill seats, the consequences of her exclusion are becoming painfully clear. It's no longer a question of if USA Basketball regrets leaving her out, but how deeply they do. The official acknowledgement of this regret has finally surfaced, and it comes from none other than Dawn Staley, a respected member of the USA Basketball Committee who helped select the team. Staley, known for her candor and integrity, has essentially admitted that they made a grave mistake. Her words were carefully measured, but the underlying message was undeniable: Caitlin is just a rookie in the WNBA. She wasn't playing badly, but she wasn't playing like she's playing now. If we had to do it all over again, the way she's playing now, she would be in really high consideration for making the team. Staley's statement, while wrapped in diplomatic language, is a stunning admission of failure. As a seasoned professional, she is well versed in the art of public relations, and as a committee member, she understands the weight of her words. She couldn't come right out and say, "We made a huge mistake by not picking Caitlin Clark," because that would open the floodgates to further scrutiny, forcing her to answer the dreaded follow-up question, who should Clark have replaced? Naming names would undoubtedly cause a rift within the team, throwing current players under the bus and potentially destabilizing the entire Olympic campaign. But make no mistake, by stating that Clark would now be a top contender for the team, Staley is conceding that the original selection process was deeply flawed. The numbers paint a damning picture of just how colossal this error was. Since being snubbed by Team USA, Caitlin Clark has embarked on what can only be described as a vengeance tour, a relentless campaign to prove her doubters wrong and to demonstrate why she should have been on that plane to Paris. July was nothing short of spectacular for Clark. She averaged a mind-boggling 20.3 points and 14.6 assists per game. These aren't just impressive stats, they are historic. Her performance since the roster was announced has been nothing less than otherworldly, a display of talent and determination that has left even the most seasoned analysts in awe. As Fever coach Christy Sides revealed, Clark herself said that USA Basketball woke up a monster by not choosing her. And that monster has been wreaking havoc on the WNBA ever since. Caitlin Clark, in her rookie year, has systematically dismantled the very players who were chosen over her. She has faced off against legends of the game Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, and Kia Cooper, and has outplayed them all. The Fever, under her leadership, have not only held their own but have triumphed over these superstars twice. In one game, Clark recorded 20 points and 13 assists. In another, she nearly achieved a triple-double. When matched up against the likes of Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and the New York Liberty, Clark delivered a triple-double with 19 points, 13 assists, and 12 rebounds, leading the Fever to victory. And let's not forget her encounters with the Minnesota Lynx and their coach Cheryl Reeve, the very woman who played a key role in her exclusion from the national team. Clark's response? Another dominant performance and another win. And at the WNBA All-Star Weekend, when the WNBA team, led by Clark, defeated the USA basketball team, the message was loud and clear: Caitlin Clark is not just a rising star, she is already one of the best in the game. At this point, any attempt to deny Caitlin Clark's status as one of the WNBA's elite is futile. She leads the league in assists, not only proving herself as the best passer but also as a player who makes everyone around her better. It is only a matter of time before she is recognized as the best shooter in the league, as she continues to break records with every game she plays. In a league brimming with talent, you would think that the best passer who can seamlessly integrate with other top players and create scoring opportunities with ease would be a lock for Team USA. And yet, here we are, watching from the sidelines as the decision to leave her off the roster plays out in real-time disaster. It's important to acknowledge that the USA roster was announced before Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise to dominance. Yes, she has improved dramatically since the roster was finalized, but this only raises more questions about the timing of the selection process. Why did USA Basketball feel the need to announce their team so early in June, when every other country waited until July to finalize their rosters? The decision to jump the gun made little sense then, and it makes even less sense now, as we witness the fallout from not waiting to see who would emerge as the season's standout players. Dawn Staley, to her credit, is not the villain in this story. In fact, she should be commended for having the courage to admit, however subtly, that a mistake was made. Staley has always been an advocate for Caitlin Clark, even after her South Carolina team defeated Iowa in the national championship game earlier this year. Despite being in the spotlight herself, Staley took the time to acknowledge Clark's talent, a gesture that speaks volumes about her integrity. The real issue lies with Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of both the Minnesota Lynx and the USA women's national team, whose disdain for Clark has been anything but subtle. Reeve's animosity toward Caitlin Clark has been apparent for some time. Earlier this season, she publicly criticized the WNBA for their Caitlin Clark-centered coverage, complaining that other games weren't being promoted on League Pass. Her disdain was palpable, and her comments were a stark contrast to the support Clark has received from other quarters. When asked about Clark's exclusion from the national team, Reeve's responses have been dismissive at best and hostile at worst. Ahead of a game between the Lynx and the Fever, Reeve was asked about Clark's chances of making the team. Her reply, "Why the hell would I answer a national team question? I'm wearing the Lynx, and I'm the head coach of the national team, but I'm not the chair of the committee." After the WNBA All-Star Game, when Clark broke the record for most assists by a rookie, Reeve was asked if she had any regrets about not selecting Clark. Her response was curt and devoid of any explanation, any second guessing here about not having Clark on the Olympic team. For me, no. These responses are deeply concerning, particularly coming from someone in Reeve's position. Typically, when a head coach is asked these types of questions, they offer a measured response that shows support for the player in question while reaffirming confidence in their decisions. That's all Reeve had to do, but instead, she chose to shut down the conversation entirely as if it wasn't worth addressing. This approach not only reflects poorly on her as a coach, but also raises serious questions about her role in the selection process. It's difficult to believe that Cheryl Reeve, with all her experience and knowledge, would have no input on who made the final roster. It's even harder to believe that the USA Basketball Committee would disregard the importance of team chemistry, fit, and playing style when assembling a roster to compete on the world's biggest stage. Coaching matters, and the style of play matters even more when you're trying to build a cohesive team out of the best individual talents. To suggest that Reeve had no say in the selection process strains credulity. After all, if the head coach isn't involved in selecting the players who will be executing her game plan, you risk creating a team that doesn't align with her vision, a recipe for disaster. What's more, Reeve knows exactly how good Caitlin Clark is. In the WNBA All-Star Game, she devised a game plan specifically to neutralize Clark, setting up her team to face guard Clark full court and take the ball out of her hands. This is the kind of defensive strategy you employ against the likes of Luka Doncic or LeBron James players who can single-handedly alter the course of a game. The fact that Reeve used this tactic against Clark is a tacit admission of her recognition of Clark's talent, even if she refuses to acknowledge it publicly. When Caitlin Clark was first left off the roster, the initial outrage was centered on the missed opportunity to promote the women's game on a global scale. This was a chance to elevate the sport's next superstar, to draw in new fans, and to generate excitement around women's basketball like never before. Now, with the dismal attendance figures at the Olympics, it's clear that these concerns were well-founded. If Caitlin Clark were in Paris, the arenas would be packed. The few fans who have shown up to the games have done so holding signs in support of Clark, a clear indication of the void left by her absence. The USA Basketball Committee is now facing the harsh reality of their decision. Caitlin Clark deserves to be in Paris, not just as a player, but as a game changer. There are not 12 players in the WNBA better than her right now, and that fact is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. What makes this situation even more infuriating is the blatant hypocrisy in how it was handled. USA Basketball has a long history of making exceptions for college players, particularly on the men's side, where stars like Christian Laettner, Emeka Okafor, and Anthony Davis were selected before entering the NBA. The same has happened on the women's side with Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker, and most notably, Breanna Stewart, who was chosen in 2016 before playing a single WNBA game. In fact, Stewart's selection came at the expense of Nneka Ogwumike, the reigning WNBA MVP at the time. If USA Basketball could justify snubbing the league's best player for a college star, then they certainly could have justified choosing Caitlin Clark, the most popular women's basketball player in history, over some of the other players on this year's roster. The truth is, Caitlin Clark wasn't selected because Cheryl Reeve and others in the WNBA are threatened by her. They have spent years trying to achieve the level of success and recognition that Clark has garnered in a fraction of the time, and it clearly bothers them. Diana Taurasi, for example, has made numerous derogatory comments about Clark, as has Breanna Stewart. They feel they were just as good as Clark at her age, but didn't receive the same level of attention, hype, or acclaim. And now, with the poor attendance in Paris, it's evident that people aren't nearly as interested in them as they are in Clark. Team USA dominates Olympic basketball, especially on the women's side. The world hasn't caught up to the women's game, and the best WNBA players are still predominantly American. This dominance allows USA Basketball to snub an MVP like Ogwumike and choose Stewart without much backlash because they always win gold anyway. So taking Caitlin Clark to Paris wouldn't have suddenly weakened Team USA. They would still be the clear favorites, even if Clark wasn't playing at the level she is now. But the fact that she is as good as she is makes her exclusion even more ludicrous. In fact, passing up on Caitlin Clark has put more pressure on Team USA than they likely realize. Clark is the reason we're seeing record viewership, record attendance, and record everything in the WNBA. She's the one drawing fans to the sport, and now, without her, many want to see Team USA fail. This negativity, especially from those who are supposed to be supporting the team, can be incredibly disruptive and damaging to team morale. If Team USA doesn't win gold, the backlash will be swift and unforgiving. The decision to leave Caitlin Clark off the roster will go down as one of the most significant blunders in the history of USA Basketball. Years from now, when we look back on this WNBA season and compare Caitlin Clark's rookie stats to those of the players who were chosen over her, the discrepancy will be glaring. We will wonder why on earth she wasn't picked, and the explanation that she was just a rookie won't hold water. The narrative will be one of missed opportunities and what could have been a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting personal biases and insecurities dictate decisions that should be based solely on merit. For now, the pressure is on Team USA to bring home the gold. But the shadow of Caitlin Clark looms large over this Olympic campaign, a reminder of the talent that was left behind. And when the dust settles, regardless of the outcome in Paris, one thing is certain: Caitlin Clark will return to the WNBA with a vengeance, ready to prove once again that she is not just a star, but a force to be reckoned with. The world may have missed out on seeing her shine on the Olympic stage, but her light will only grow brighter in the years to come.